Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Crossing Borders. I'm Mike Ginn. That's Extremo Alex Soto. We're going to talk today about the upcoming card, LUX 19 in Mexico City, about a little more than a week from today. We do have a couple announcements real quick before we do jump into it and everything. First, this is going to be our final episode for the season. We'll jump back into everything in January, get you caught up on anything you might have missed, but it's the holiday time, trying to spend a little bit more time with our families, enjoy our loved ones, so on and so forth. We hope you guys do at home as well. But we are going to talk about LUX 19 today. We're going to talk about Bam Bam Valenzuela back in action against Ricardo Centeno. We'll talk about that card, some surprises, some sleepers, get Alex's insight on that. And, of course, he'll be going to Mexico City next week, so you know he's going to be getting some cricket tacos. But we'll talk about all that as we go. But first, Alex, how was your Thanksgiving? How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Mike, it's been great, man. Great Thanksgiving with the family. It's always a blessing to get together with everybody. The whole family came in. We all had a great time. We had a great Guadalajara style turkey. That was, oh man!
What is a Guadalajara style turkey?
Yeah, it is. Have you ever had birria?
Yeah, I love birria tacos.
Okay,
they're my favorite.
It's like birria, but with the same way you cook birria, with that red kind of like oily stuff, but with the turkey. And it was, with the stuffing and olives.
So slow cooked, like stew style.
Yep, exactly. But it's not in a stew though.
Yeah.
But it's like but it's nice and moist, and it's just
kind of
really
seasoned
good,
the same way.
It's seasoned the same way, yeah, and it tastes amazing, man. So.
That sounds really good. Now I know. Now I know what I'm doing for Thanksgiving next year.
No, seriously, I got the recipe too. I'll pass it over to you.
Definitely. We always love trying new stuff. And Tampa, you might not know this, but Tampa is like pretty much outside of Mexico. We're like the home of birria tacos. Like that whole style. Like because we have so much Mexican citizens, I guess here along with the Cubans and everything else here in Tampa, that we just have such an influence of it that the competing Hispanic cultures all have their different food styles, and it's always like a competition trying to one up each other here. So as somebody who just loves food, as you can probably tell by my waistline, it is definitely a good place to be. I had to drive 16 hours up to DC, and then coming back because of traffic and accident after accident after accident, 19 hours back. So that was not the best drive back and forth, but spending time with family made it all worth it. And I definitely was missing my family all the way back in DC. So it was a good time. I'm glad the holidays are kind of moving forward. Can't wait for Christmas. And we'll get to all that. But, Alex, we got some fights to talk about coming up next week. You excited for LUX 19?
I am. I'm really excited about LUX 19. I'm excited about the fight card. I'm excited about some of the fighters that are going to be in there. There's definitely some up and coming guys that our folks listening should really be looking at and really analyzing, see their styles and see who's out there and who's coming up and who could possibly be on the UFC radar coming up soon. So yeah, we have Ivan Bam Bam Valenzuela taking out Ricardo Centeno from Ecuador. So Mexico, Ecuador, he'll be the first Ecuadorian to step into the LUX Fight League cage.
Oh, really?
So that's going to be adding more mixture into the Latin American field with LUX Fight League. I think we've demonstrated that in the past, and then today we're with LUX 19 now, and this main event card. It's going to be very interesting with these 185 pounders going at it.
Bam Bam seems to be on a world tour, though. Everybody's coming to him in Mexico, but he fought Brandon Kinsler, who's like all over Asia. Now he's fighting an Ecuadorian. Like, he seems to be like the guy who's just welcoming everybody to Mexico at this point.
Yeah, and you know what? He squashed the competition, man. You've seen lots of his fights. They've been one-sided. Like, he's just been absolutely smashing against. The only one that gave him any trouble was Granados back in, I believe it was LUX 3.
7.
Thank you. Yeah, it was earlier LUX's. He was being worked on the ground, so he did show some. He was younger. He was LUX 7 was a few years ago now, and his sense, in my opinion, has gotten better. But I haven't really been able to see it because he's been just dominating the competition ever since. But in that fight, he did show a lot of skill set on the ground. Not a lot of. I think it also shows some weaknesses of like the scramble and being able to really, fight off on the, fighting off basically the grappling exchange for mixed martial arts. So I
Being able
did
to
see a
fight
lot
off
of
his back.
being able to really. I guess there's a big difference in MMA and jiu-jitsu and just regular no punching jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, like
And there's
gi and no gi, and
not but when you add punches into your jiu-jitsu game, it's completely different, right?
yeah.
There's some stuff that you just can't get away with, like throwing up a big half guard, deep half guard, I should say, could get you knocked out pretty fast, and it's something that jiu-jitsu players get really comfortable in and using that deep half to get a sweep or so that's one of the common things that I see in young jiu-jitsu practitioners that get into mixed martial arts, and they
Even
still hold
veterans
on.
sometimes. Like even
Even
veterans,
better,
like Ryan Hall. Like Ryan Hall's last fight. Like Ryan Hall's notorious for doing a lot of like crazy unorthodox things, but when he goes for a grappling thing, he kind of goes all in. He doesn't like defend himself. He's going for the submission, and most of the time he gets it. But his last fight, he got bloodied up and knocked out because he wasn't defending for the punches, like you were talking about.
right? And like I'm saying, there's this disconnect that has to happen, right? This switch where you go to a traditional a traditional jiu-jitsu gym, and they're very if it's a very structural procedure on how you are going to throw these submissions, get these sweeps, and really ignoring the elbow attacks from the top position or the ground and pound from the top position. So those really can have an effect. Now, I did see Bam Bam Valenzuela do that in that fight against Granados back in LUX 7. But ever since LUX 7, I think he came back stronger. But the level of competition hasn't really kind of caught up with him yet. Like you said, he's welcoming all these people coming in, but he is smashing everybody. So I'm curious to see if we're going to see a little bit of that disconnect in that ground game of his. Yeah. So when we look at Centeno, right, and he's an Ecuadorian striker, it's going to be difficult to see how that's going to play out, against Ivan Bam Bam Venezuela, who's a much bigger opponent, because Centeno has fought at 170 before, and he looks kind of on the smaller side again in this matchup. So he's got a lot of experience in this fight, a little bit more experience. He's 9-6, but he has held the championship in Ecuador, in his local fight leagues. And you just gave me his info. I mean, he's been training out at TriStar.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was letting you finish. Like, so he has fought his last couple fights at 185, so he's kind of gotten used to the weight increase. When he fought for Extreme MMA, obviously he fought at a 170. When he went over for Barbarians 12 and Barbarians 14 earlier this year, quite close turnaround too, June 1st and June 30th. So he's fought quite a bit this year. He fought at 185 pounds, so he's kind of used to it a little bit. But yeah, he trained out of Vancouver's TriStar, so. You talk about his striking, but I'm sure they helped him with his wrestling as well. TriStar is famous. Roy McDonald, GSP, they're grappling, they're wrestling along with their striking. So I'm sure it can only help make him more an all-round opponent. Of course, you talk about Bam Bam and his lack of competition, but you've also mentioned a number of times, a lot of the Mexican fighters are smaller fighters. They're smaller, faster, bantamweight, featherweight, lightweights. So at 185 pounds, there just aren't too many big Mexican fighters for him to really go up against. So this might be a little bit tougher test than people kind of see on paper, because while you look at Valenzuela 7-1 and only has that one, like you just talked about, that one matchup, he's finished, I believe, 6 out of his 7 wins. He's finished in the first or second round. And then you're fighting a guy who also finishes people really quick. The last 3 fights, Centeno's finished in the first round as well. So this might be a more explosive fight than people think. I will say Centeno seems to be very streaky. He'll lose 3 or 4 in a row, then he'll win 3 or 4 in a row. So his record's kind of deceiving when you see that 9-6. But this could be a very fun matchup when they step in the cage on the 10th.
Yeah, Centeno's 4-2 in his last 6 fights. So he's no slouch for sure.
Including 3 in a row.
Yeah, exactly. And he's been honestly, and he's been doing fantastic coming in. And to add on, 185. You don't see a lot of Mexican fighters at 185 pounds, especially at this kind of level of skill set and really being promoted up. There's just not a lot of them, which also dictates why we're getting all these people from out of town, from out of the country. And he's been doing a really good job with that. I should say the manager, Andrew Briones, has been doing a fantastic job with that. And also a former UFC fighter who's been, a big part, an integral part of the LUX Fight League, and setting up matches. One of the things, if you look at a little bit of the tape on Ricardo Centeno, he's got a low stance and he's got a wide stance. Down, almost like a Conor McGregor stance. Very, very poisonous. He's always looking for the counter, and this is going to be big for him in the way he's stylistically speaking against Bam Bam, because Bam Bam's going to try to take this fight and push him up against the cage. And so, but what that stance is going to allow Centeno to do is be able to keep his distance and be able to change the angles on Ivan Bam Bam Valenzuela. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. You're right. I think it's going to be fireworks. I think we're going to have ourselves a really interesting 185-pound matchup for the main event at LUX 19.
And for what it's worth, while many people are favoring Bam Bam in this fight, on Tapology right now, Centeno is the number 1 ranked middleweight in Latin America, and Bam Bam is number 2. So Centeno is actually, he is the more experienced fighter. He's been doing it a lot longer than Bam Bam. So it's going to be the young up-and-coming Bam Bam Valenzuela versus Centeno in the main event. Real quick, before we move on to the next fight, who you got winning in the fight?
I think Bam Bam takes it. His pure size and natural ability just it seems to overcome his opponents. And I think because Centeno's the shorter fighter, I think because he's the lighter fighter, I should say, coming into this fight, I think it might be a little bit too much for the handle. So I think I'm going to go with Valenzuela on this one.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Over in the co-main event, you got your boy El Pato Alejandro Martinez going against Edgar Delgado Jimenez. Another situation where you might actually think El Pato's favored in this fight, but Jimenez is actually the higher ranked fighter in this one as far as the Latin American rankings go. Break down that fight for us.
So, okay, now, man, I love Pato. He's one of my favorite fighters, Mexican fighters, because he fights to entertain, okay? And that's like his motto, man. When he comes in there, he wants to throw down and stand toe-to-toe with you and hang in there. He's really good at that. He's got a good he's got a hard chin, and he's got really good skill sets. And I've been seeing him fight since he fought Zatar back at LUX or Brave 7 in Tijuana. Oh, I'm sorry, in Abu Dhabi. And he's just been on a tear, but it's always entertaining to watch. It's so much fun. He sits there and fights like a Mexican every time. And that's always been problematic, though, at the same time. In his last fight, I had him losing up against Gianfranco Delgado. I figured that it was going to be, that Delgado might come up with the edging over Alejandro Pato Martinez. But Delgado showed up to fight toe-to-toe. He got pulled into that fight for Alejandro, and Pato Martinez was able to really, win and get the nod from the judges. I think it was split decision, or might have been a unanimous. I can't remember, but it was a really fun fight to watch.
I think you mean Cortez.
Was it Cortez that I thought it was
he's
against
fighting Delgado. He's fighting Delgado now.
Okay. You're right. My bad. I meant
you said the right
Cortez.
first name. You said the right first name, but then you got the fighters mixed up with the last names. That's why I followed. But yeah, Gianfranco Cortez was the fight you're talking about. Yeah, just in September.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a little entertaining. Now, when we look at El Caballero Delgado, he fights a little bit more strategic. So he's got a split loss against Miguel Villegas, who arguably I think is one of the top talents coming out of the fight league. Hasn't really had that chance to explode out yet. I think we're going to see that in 2022. I think 2022 is going to be his year if Miguel Villegas continues. But he's got that split decision loss, but he was strategic in that fight. That fight, he wasn't the better fighter, but his skill set allowed him to really maneuver in such a way to keep Villegas fight on the feet. Survived a lot of submission attempts, showed a lot of poise, and showed a lot of intelligence in that fight. If we go to a fighter that likes to fight for entertainment purposes, up against a fighter who's always trying to look for that win and trying to get that strategic,
does whatever he has to, yeah.
Yeah, whatever he's got to do to win, it's going to be a tough one. So I would hate to do this again, but I'm going to go with Delgado winning this by a split decision win due to his ability to adjust to a fight.
You know, it's funny. You look at it, and Delgado's won 5 out of his last 6. The only loss is to Villegas. I'm sorry. That's the only loss he has, and it was a split decision. So he's been on a roll. And then you got, like you said, Alpado likes to go bring the fight to everybody. But other than the one stoppage against Harris, all of them have been decisions. They've all been close. He lost 4 out of 5 before that. So it's really like, what are you getting with Alpado? You know you're going to get a fun fight, but you don't really necessarily know. I actually kind of agree with you. I think Delgado's going to win the fight for the same exact reasons. He can adapt. He can do different styles. I think Pato has a puncher's chance. I think he always can go in there and make it messy and fun. But I think you're going to have your hands full with both the co-main event and main event next Friday night, because I think they're going to be some really good fights to watch, whether you're watching it on Fox Sports Deportes or UFC Fight Pass. But that's the main and co-main event. Now you have 9 other fights on this card. What are a couple of the other fights that really stand out to you?
So sticking to the UFC Fight Pass card, I got David Mendoza versus Freddie Villegas.
Battle.
Yeah. Now, if you look at topology, it looks like this Freddie Villegas guy's 1-2, or 1 win, 2 losses. And then David Mendoza's just been on a tear. But officially, both of these fighters have a lot of fights. Unofficially, I should say, there's a lot more talent behind the official records on this.
It's funny you say that. Real quick to interrupt you. It's funny you say that, because on our new show, Battleground, you'll see coming out on this Saturday, Brandon and I were talking about something, and I brought up what you say about that. As we were talking about Peter Yan and some of the other stuff, and I'm like, officially, you see Peter Yan has like less than 20 fights. But like a lot of these global athletes, Russia, Mexico, so on and so forth, a lot of the fights aren't documented, especially by the major outlets. So they could have 50 fights, you don't know. So when you see something on the record like 1 and 2 for Freddie, you just don't know how many more fights he has. I know you were talking about that a few episodes ago when we were talking about some of these fighters in Tijuana and some of these other places. You don't know where they've been fighting. So you just assume sometimes that some of these fighters have way more experience than you think. But I'm sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to bring that up.
No, it's a good point, and that's something that I'm always talking about. And when I'm on the broadcasting booth with Francisco X Rivera, is you get these fighters that come up 0-0 or 1-2 or something random like that, and we're both thinking, okay, well, this is going to be obviously a squash match. And then you see the fights and the level that these guys are coming at, just absolutely is impressive to watch. And you're like, wait a minute, who is this kid? Where did this come from? But you're right, and that's something that is not documented a lot. You look at Topology is the best we could do. You go on YouTube, you surprisingly see a lot more fights there as well. There's definitely a big discrepancy there on Topology or Sherdog.
It's like Abigail Montez, the girl that beat Clarissa Shields. They put them in the cage together, thinking that, okay, here's this 21-year-old girl that has 2 fights, and obviously Clarissa Shields in her second pro MMA fight, obviously a world of combat sports experience with boxing. I told people before that fight, Abigail, even though she did a completely different strategy, she just did a smart strategy, took her down, did what she had to do to win. She has I think she's been fighting professionally since she was 16, all over We talked about this a little bit when they were first announced that fight, because we were talking about also about the girl that unfortunately lost her life in Canada because they weren't fighting her like in a or she fought too quick of a turnaround. But Abigail's been fighting Muay Thai. She's been fighting a number of other professional fighters, like closer combat sports than boxing is to MMA. So she was used to it. She had the grappling experience. She took her down and just smothered her for 3 rounds until she finally opened up the 3rd round and tried to finish Clarissa Shields. But that was another girl. I told people, watch out for Abigail Montez. She's been fighting. You just don't see it on a Sherdog or Tapology because it's different. So, yeah, it just, you never know. You never know. But speaking of David Mendoza and Freddie, what do you expect out of that war?
So I'm expecting a big return there, Mendoza. I think Mendoza, this is going to be his opportunity to come back down. He's lot two consecutive to the champ. So we're, against Beltran. So I'm thinking Mendoza is going to come in, make a statement against Villegas. I mean, he has to. He got dogged twice. He got put away really fast in the 1st round against Beltran. So I'm hoping to see that from him, because I'm a big fan of Mendoza. I think Mendoza, Leon, the Lanes, what they call him, he's got a lot of talent. He's a tough kid, really, really, really tough, really talented. And he was just lacked a little bit of experience coming into fight, for that type of title. So he needs to start getting highlight reels right now, man. He needs to get back on the bicycle, get those wins, and start really making an example and earning that spot again to the 135-pound championship.
Your weight class. So if he doesn't, there's an opening for a guy named Alex Soto if he wants to jump back in the cage.
Yeah, right. 135 pounds. I haven't seen that weight in a long time.
You fighting more at Bam Bam's weight class these days?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those are big, man. Oh man. Yeah, every time I go down there, I'm always missing it. I'm like, oh, I want to get in on this. Let me get in. Then I start working out, and it's like, oh my gosh, never mind.
The itch only lasts as far as the gym.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you go in there, you go to the gym, start hitting the mitts, and you're like, wow, I'm exhausted. It takes, it would take me literally a year of training the way I was to get back into decent fighting shape. I mean, it's some dedication. It's a way of it's a way of life, man. It's crazy.
I mean, yeah, it's a lifestyle. It's not just like, let's train for 6 weeks and hop in there. You got to be invested. You can't. Yeah. So before we get rid of LUX 19, break down one more fight for me. Eric Rodriguez, Diego Ortiz. This is a fight I'm looking forward to. I love watching. I've seen Eric Rodriguez fight like twice now. Flyweight fighter. Him and Diego Ortiz, both with really good records, both pretty highly ranked. What do you expect out of that fight?
Dude, same thing I do. So this is the prime weight class for all Mexican fighters or Latin American fighters. 125 is just fire. And when we look at that weight at that particular weight class, it's just excitement, man. It's being out there with the broadcasting booth, like cage side, and watching these guys. They don't even look 125 pounds. They're short, but they're just stocky, man. So I think maybe Rodriguez might be able to come up with the top on this one. It's hard to say because it really is. It's really equally matched. I believe. I mean, tell me what are some of the reasons that you find this one so exciting?
Well, I mean, I've watched Eric Rodriguez fight now for a couple of different cards now. I believe the last one was back in May against Maya. He got the guillotine. He's gotten four. He either gets choked or chokes somebody out, like one or the other. But he's a big submission guy. He does have one TKO way back in like 2015. But all his fights, he's scrambling. He's trying to get that submission. And all I can think of is if he wins this fight, he might be next for Alessandro Costa. And then that's going to be a great grappling fight because Costa's BJJ against this guy on the ground grappling. I think him and Eric Rodriguez could have a really fun fight. But he has to get by this fight first. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Eric does have the, they both have actually the same loss to the same opponent, which is Calvao. Jorge
Yeah.
Carvalho, who fought for 125-pound weight class. Really awkward stance, kind of a, I think he was from Colombia. Is that where he was from? Is Carvalho?
Calvo,
Or
yeah, he's from Costa Rica.
Yep. So he just had like this really awkward stance, and we thought it was going to be very competitive against Alessandro Costa because of striking. But man, Alessandro Costa just put him away super fast with a body kick. But he's very difficult to put away. He's a tough guy to submit. He's a tough guy to put off. And they were both unable to really get to Carvalho. So this is going to be a good kind of eliminator, if you will. I would love to see the winner of this fight, Ortiz or Rodriguez, going up against Jorge Calvo and try to see if they can both get that rematch. One of these guys can get that rematch against Calvo, excuse me.
So if they fight each other, then what's left for Costa? He's got to sit there and wait.
Again, these guys fight each other, and then who waits? Alessandro?
Yeah, if he's waiting for the contenders to work themselves out, who would he fight in the meantime?
Man, who can fight? Man, Alessandro Costa is just at a different level, man.
Because those two guys are next in line.
Yeah, I agree. I think both these guys could have it. I just don't think they're at the same level as Alessandro Costa, with all due respect. Costa's just he's got way too much experience. Ortiz is I guess he's got two NAGA. He became a 2-time NAGA champion in the U.S.
Yeah, gi champion. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got some jiu-jitsu skills to be able to hold off against Alessandro Costa, maybe. But man, Costa's got hands, man. He's got hands. He's the speed. He's got really that whole division. I don't see anybody coming close to him right now.
Yeah, I mean that's a discussion for another day anyway. But obviously you saw Enrique Kiki Gonzalez like go to battle with him. That only lasted so long until Costa caught him. He's a hard puzzle to figure out, and I think you're going to see him in either UFC, Bellator, or PFL sooner than later, especially with the lighter fighters. And those divisions aren't overly – they're stacked up top, but they're not like very deep. So the more of these fighters that keep coming up, the more potential they have. And on this card right now, I think if Bam Bam Valenzuela wins this fight for the middleweight title, I wouldn't be surprised UFC comes knocking on his door too, because you don't have too many Mexican 185-pound fighters that could open doors as far as marketing and sponsorship and those kinds of things that you hate as fighters to think about, because you want to think about the authenticness, right? Like what happens in that cage should it be all that matters. But Alex, you've been on the business side of this thing for a long time. Marketing matters. And if you have a guy from a region that you really don't promote too much for bigger fighters, I can't even think. I mean, other than Kane, obviously, and then the Diaz brothers, which were both American Mexican, I can't even think of a true Mexican fighter that has fought at like 185 and up. Is there any that pops to mind for
you? True Mexican fighter, like born in Mexico?
Yeah.
Oh, man. The only one that I can think of is the Mexicutioner. I think he fought at 185.
Yeah, maybe. I thought it was 107. Man, you might be right. It might be 185. But either way, it's not a lot of them. And Bam Bam could definitely be a young, bright star. He has the look. He has the charisma. Like you've heard him on the mic. You've heard him everything. He I don't know how well his English is. I've only seen him do interviews in Spanish. But if he can cross that border and do that stuff, he could be very big. But he has to get by Ricardo Centeno first. And that's not going to be an easy challenge. Exciting things coming up December 10th in Mexico City, Pepsi Center. If you're in the area, go check it out. If you're at home, watch it on Fight Pass. Hopefully, Alex doesn't have to do the first part of this broadcast by himself this time. Hopefully, Francisco doesn't have any kind of travel restrictions and can get down there pretty quickly and team up, and the dynamic duo can knock out another great show. Alex, good luck with the show. I'm looking forward to watching it next week. Definitely have a great holidays. I can't wait to see you guys back on January 6th. That will be our next episode Thursday, January 6th, we'll be back in action. I hope everybody has a fantastic, happy holidays, no matter what you celebrate. It's all about being with loved ones and the people that you care about. Alex, any final words for the families at home?
Just stay tuned. UFC Fight Pass, check it out. LUX 19. It's gonna be fireworks like always, man.
Absolutely, and hopefully they don't pull any last-second fight changes with you like they usually do. But hey, it's the fight game. Things happen. Alex, have a happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Send your family my love, and I'll see you soon, buddy. For everybody at home, this is Crossing Borders. Have a happy holidays, and we'll see you in January.